Portfolio questions, and the portfolio on this occasion is social justice. Just to advise members, there's quite a bit of interest in supplementary questions, so brevity in those and the responses would be appreciated. I call question number 1, James Dornan.
To ask the Scottish Government what steps it is taking to improve support for disabled people, including when seeking employment.
Minister Colcap-Stewart.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. We recognise the need for greater support for disabled people, including in employment. That's why we've committed an extra £2 million to our Disability Equality Plan. We have also provided £5 million through the Equalities and Human Rights Fund to support disabled people's rights. Since 2018, we've invested £4.5 million through the Workplace Equality Fund and a public social partnership to help employers tackle labour market barriers. Learning from these initiatives is being shared to ensure that employers across Scotland can access tools and guidance to implement fair work and support disabled people to secure and sustain employment.
James Dornan.
I thank the Minister for that answer. But as the Westminster Government launched a Green Paper proposing more cuts to the financial support for disabled people, more disabled people will be forced into seeking employment without the necessary support being available to help them overcome their physical and mental barriers to this often daunting, if not impossible, process. Would the Minister agree with me that thanks to the poorly thought out decisions of the Labour Government, that it is clear that an already vulnerable community may now face even greater fear and alarm over their future? And can she tell me and the local community organisations I recently met to discuss their fears and concerns over the impacts on these cuts, how the Scottish Government can further support them at this time of ever-increasing need?
Minister.
The welfare reforms set out in the UK Government's pathway to work Green Paper make it clear that the UK Government has prioritised spending cuts over the welfare of sick and disabled people across the UK. The Scottish Government, however, is clear that the Chancellor should not be looking to balance the books by targeting the benefits relied upon by sick and disabled people. We strongly reject the welfare proposals that are calling on, and we are calling on the UK Government to scrap them immediately. I want to reaffirm that the Scottish Government aims to take a different approach to welfare, ensuring that everyone is treated with dignity, fairness and respect. And as set out in the new programme for government, we will offer enhanced support for disabled people to move into sustainable employment through the specialist employability support from July 25 onwards, and have provided a £5 million uplift in order to support this.
Thank you. A brief supplementary, Jeremy Balfour.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The Minister is criticising rightly the Westminster Government, but she does recognise that the disability plan that she's been working on has been overwhelmingly rejected by disabled charities and disabled individuals. So will she re-engage with the disability community in a meaningful way, rather than imposing stuff that they know won't work in practice?
Minister.
I thank Mr Balfour for his continued interest in this and for championing this issue. However, I would take issue with his view on this. We are investing £2.5 million in the Disability Equality Plan, and that is an increase of £2 million. Now, that will drive meaningful change in the lives of disabled people. Priorities have been informed by recent engagements with disabled people's organisations, and we are working to align this investment with the areas that have been identified. We remain committed to listening to disabled people and ensuring that their voices shape the decisions and delivery of this funding.
Thank you. Question 2, Fulton McGregor. We don't appear to have Mr McGregor's audio. Can we try again, Mr McGregor?
Thanks, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what steps it is taking to reduce child poverty and ensure that targeted support reaches local families most in need in Coatbridge and Christdown and other deprived areas.
Cabinet Secretary.
We are providing a range of support which will benefit families in Coatbridge, Christen and across Scotland, including investment in the Scottish Child Payment, early learning and childcare and free bus travel for under-22s. Between February 2021 and December 2024, our Scottish Child Payment has made more than 530,000 payments worth over £77 million to low-income families in North Lanarkshire. This action is making a real difference. On average, households with children in the poorest 10% of households are this year estimated to be £2,600 a year better off because of Scottish Government policies.
Fulton McGregor.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that response, and I welcome the Scottish Government steps that she has outlined. With evidence suggesting that poverty is increasingly affecting working families, can the Cabinet Secretary provide details on how it is working with local employers and job support services in Coatbridge and Christen and across Lanarkshire to tackle in-work poverty, especially for parents juggling low-paid jobs with caring responsibilities?
Cabinet Secretary.
Last year, we made up to £90 million available to local authorities to support delivery of our No One Left Behind approach to employability services, which includes providing over £2.1 million for North Lanarkshire Council for parental employment support, supporting parents both in and out of work to increase their earnings. And between April 2021 and September 2024, we supported almost 28,000 parents through our devolved employability services. The programme for government published this week has committed further action with a further £90 million for employability services and funding for pilot projects focusing on inclusive recruitment practices to support people to enter and to progress in the workplace.
Question 3, Eleanor Whittam.
To ask the Scottish Government what action it is taking to tackle any racism in Scotland's housing and homelessness system.
Cabinet Secretary.
Scotland is determined to play our part in eradicating racism, inequality and injustice and in building a better, fairer world. We are investing £768 million in affordable housing in 25-26. Local authorities are responsible for assessing local housing need and demand and setting out how this will be met through the local housing strategies and strategic housing investment plans. They should ensure equality is central to housing and housing service delivery. The Scottish Social Housing Charter, monitored by the housing regulator, also requires social landlords to provide fair access to housing in a way that recognises individual need.
Eleanor Whittam.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer. Statistics recently highlighted by Shelter Scotland show that black and people of colour are bearing the brunt of Scotland's housing emergency, with 27% of all failures to provide temporary accommodation and 28% of unsuitable accommodation order breaches happening to households of colour, who can also expect to spend longer in temporary accommodation than white Scottish households. Can the Cabinet Secretary update on what actions the Scottish Government can take forward to target support at such families who are facing systemic inequalities in Scotland's housing system?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, can I thank Eleanor Whittam for raising what is a very, very important issue, and I can hopefully reassure her that the theme of equality runs through our homelessness strategy, Ending Homelessness Together, which is underpinned by a person-centred approach. And we expect local authorities also to work to meet the needs of each homeless household and pay due regard to the public sector equality duty as they carry out those functions. The number of children in temporary accommodation is too high, and of the £768 million that we will invest in affordable housing in 25-26, £40 million of that will be targeted to local authorities with sustained temporary accommodation pressures to increase supply of social homes through acquisitions, including larger homes suitable for families, which I hope will assist in the challenges that Ms Whittam has brought to the Chamber today to allow us to discuss.
Thank you. Question 4 was not lodged. Question 5, Katie Clark.
To ask the Scottish Government what further action it can take to increase the stock of accessible housing.
Cabinet Secretary.
We are increasing the supply of accessible and adapted homes across Scotland, and to support tenants to live safely and independently, we have increased the budget for registered social landlords adaptations for 25-26 by over 150% to £20.9 million. And we have consulted on proposals to enhance the accessibility and adaptability of Scotland's homes, which included proposed updates to the Housing for Varying Needs Design Guide, as well as the introduction of a Scottish Accessible Home Standard through changes to building standards and guidance. The analysis of this consultation will inform our next steps.
Katie Clark.
A constituent in Irvine has been waiting for housing with wheelchair access since May 2022, and another constituent in Ardrossan, also with serious health conditions, has been informed they will have to wait 12 years, even though they're sleeping on the sofa and the lack of a downstairs toilet means they have to use a commode. As the Cabinet Secretary knows, this is a Scottish-wide problem. So what more does she think the Scottish Government can do to increase the stock of accessible housing across Scotland? And does she think there is a consistency of provision in different local authorities?
Cabinet Secretary.
So, again, this is a very important aspect that we should rightly be discussing in Parliament, tying into Lena Whittam's question about the challenge for government and for local authorities to ensure that housing is available to everyone, and particularly with regards to their particular needs need to be taken into account. I mentioned in my answers to Ellen Whittam the responsibilities not just of the Scottish Government but also of local authorities through their local housing strategies, the public sector equality duty, and indeed the quality impact assessments that we are all required to have right at the heart of our discussions. So I do appreciate there are challenges that we all need to rise to in this. I hope my original answer detailed some of the work going on at a Scottish Government level to again increase the provision in this area, and local authorities as the providers of housing also need to take that into account very seriously, Presiding Officer.
Thank you. A couple of supplementaries for Stuart McMillan.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Can the Cabinet Secretary provide an update on the impact of investment from the Scottish Government in levels of affordable and accessible housing, but also how the Scottish Government continues to invest in voids and acquisitions as part of its affordable housing supply programme to address temporary accommodation pressures? Cabinet Secretary.
Well, it is very important that the increased investment which the Scottish Government is putting into affordable housing, that's £768 million, is used to unlock the new affordable homes that are required. So the money in the financial year 25-26 we estimate will deliver over 8,000 affordable homes. And there is also important work going on through the Housing Investment Task Force that Government will look at very keenly to see what more can be done to unlock new investment opportunities across all tenures. But I can reassure Stuart McMillan that an estimated 2,669 households with children have been helped into affordable housing in the year to December 2024. And that's an important part of the work that we must all undertake to ensure children and their families are well housed.
And Alexander Stewart.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. There is a significant shortage of accessible housing within Mid-Scotland and Fife, which impacts disabled individuals, particularly those who require wheelchair-accessible homes. While some local authorities have committed to building more accessible homes, current rates of construction are insufficient to meet the growing demand. Can I ask the Cabinet Secretary what further action can be put in to achieve and resolve this crisis?
Cabinet Secretary.
As I've already mentioned, Presiding Officer, that £768 million of investment is going in 25-26, which the member did not vote for as the budget went through Parliament, is an important part of that, as is the work that has been undertaken to increase the budget for registered social landlords to allow for adaptations of current homes as well. So that investment in new build and the investment into adaptations in RSLs shows, I think, this Government's commitment to assisting to increase the provision of affordable homes and also for those which require particular design needs for a disability or long-term condition.
Question 6, Jamie Green.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what further consideration it has given to increasing or removing the earnings limit for recipients of the carer support payment.
Cabinet Secretary.
The recent earnings increase from £151 to £196 a week for 25-26 means carers in Scotland can earn £45 more per week and still get carer support payment, helping remove barriers to work and provide more stable support. The earnings limit for carer support payment will continue to align with carers' allowance until case transfer completes later this year. We continue to consider stakeholder feedback, learning from the live delivery of carer support payment and engagement with the DWP on their plans for carers' allowance to develop future policy on earnings for rules from 26-27 onwards.
Jamie Green.
Can I thank the Government for that response? And the increase to £196 per week, I think, is welcome in the care sector. However, it does still offer a cliff edge. If you go £1 over that earnings limit, you lose the benefit in its entirety. And the problem with that is that faces people with a choice to either to refuse to do more hours or accept pay rises, or to put in more working hours and perhaps be able to care much less. I don't think either of those are good outcomes. So I would ask the Government to give serious consideration to calls from these benches and from the third sector to any form of tapering of the benefit, so there's not this cliff edge cut-off, which hopefully would get people back into work but still allow them to perform their caring duties. Cabinet Secretary.
This is an area where I've had discussions with carers organisations as we've developed carers support payments. So I can hopefully assure Jamie Green that I fully appreciate the point that he is making and the importance of that. Can I again reassure him that we're already trying to undertake work and have actually undertaken work to work with carers to make sure the information on earning rules for carer support payment as it stands at the moment is clearer. For example, we average out carers' earnings to provide more stable support and use data from HMRC and scheduled reviews to check and track the earnings to hopefully assist with some of the challenges. But on the earnings taper, there have been differing views on this as we've gone on with the consultation. And the analysis was that this would have significant complexity for carers and the interactions with wider support as well. So, as I've said in my original answer, this is something that we will continue to consider looking at as future policy and earnings develops once the case transfer is complete, because I do absolutely take on point the concerns that carers has raised. But I would point some caution to the fact that it's an exceptionally complex area, and we need to ensure that the differences that any change will make to some of the other wider support for carers that is still reserved is taken into account. But I'm assuring we'll do that.
A brief supplementary from Colette Stevenson.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Unpaid carers offer vital support to their loved ones, and it is important that they are recognised for this dedication while pursuing their ambitions. Can the Cabinet Secretary advise how many young people in full-time education now benefit from this payment, and how young carers in education will continue to be supported by this Scottish Government?
And briefly, Cabinet Secretary.
Well, the carer support payment is available to many full-time students who would have been unable to get carers allowance under the DWP, and we estimate that will assist 1,500 more carers. And carers aged 16, 17 and 18 who are not getting carer support payment may also be able to get Young Carers Grant, supporting 9,400 carers, again something that's not available elsewhere in the UK.
Thank you. Question 7, Michelle Thompson.
To ask the Scottish Government what assessment it has made to ensure the timely delivery of benefits by Social Security Scotland.
Cabinet Secretary.
Social Security Scotland has significantly improved processing times. In April 2023, processing time for adult disability payments was 96 working days. Latest statistics from January 2025 show this at 42 days. The flexible approach manages client demand effectively, and along with supporting new applications, over 390,000 people have now had their awards transferred from the Department of Work and Pensions. Client satisfaction remains high, with 90% rating their overall experience as very good or good, and I hope that can reassure the member that the Government is taking very seriously the improvements in processing times that we need to see.
Michelle Thompson.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer. And there's been a quite remarkable delivery of 15 benefits since it set up 6 years ago. But what assurances can the Cabinet Secretary give about the available capacity at Social Security Scotland, particularly given the transfer of some 66,000 DLA recipients onto Scottish Disability Living Allowance? And what progress has been made in improving accessibility to key performance indicator data to assist with the improved scrutiny of how Social Security Scotland is functioning overall?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, the agency has grown at pace, Presiding Officer, in the last 6 years, and is now delivering 15 benefits, 7 of which are only available in Scotland. And of course, this winter, the agency will introduce pension age winter heating payment and restore winter fuel payments for pensioners. The Social Security does actively manage its workforce to ensure that the resources are managed effectively and efficiently, ensuring there is value for money for the public as well as delivering on requirements, and that does involve managing application peaks and the challenges that inevitably come with the rollout of additional benefits such as pension age disability payment and the winter fuel payments I mentioned earlier, Presiding Officer.
Thank you. And question 8, Paul O'Kane.
To ask the Scottish Government what its position is on its own reported assessment that its target of delivering 110,000 affordable homes by 2032 is at risk.
Cabinet Secretary.
We remain focused on delivering 110,000 affordable homes across Scotland by 2032, with at least 70% for social rent and 10% in our rural and island communities, backed by the investment of £768 million in 25-26. We will continue to work with partners to increase the numbers and availability of affordable homes to help tackle the housing emergency and deliver on our target.
Paul O'Kane.
Delivering more affordable homes is a vital component to tackling the tragedy that sees 10,000 homeless children in Scotland. And no matter how much the First Minister would like the Labour Party, and I quote, to move on, find something else to talk about and find something else to moan about, which I noticed he doubled down on at FMQs today, telling us to stop whinging, we will continue to hold the Government accountable for that failure and advocate for action to help those 10,000 homeless children. So, on accountability, given that the Affordable Housing Supply Programme Risk Register, obtained by Scottish Labour under Freedom of Information, shows that staffing, financial and commercial risks are all so high that the 110,000 targets at risk. What is the Scottish Government doing to address those risks? Or does the Cabinet Secretary think, like the First Minister, we should all just move on from the issue?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, I can assure the member that the Government is absolutely determined to deliver on the 110,000 affordable target. What the First Minister was pointing to, and which I will also make no apologies for, Presiding Officer, is the hypocrisy of the Labour Party coming here to the Chamber to talk about putting more money into housing when they wouldn't even support the £768 million that's in the budget this year. And I will also not stop going on about that this year, and nor will the First Minister.
A number of supplementaries, try to get them all in. They'll need to be brief, as will the responses. First, Megan Gallagher.
Presiding Officer, the best way to make housing affordable for Scots is to build more homes. But we know that the SNP Government's housing policy has led to a £3 billion loss of a £3 billion investment from the private sector. So will the Cabinet Secretary work with the sector to ensure that housing providers can do their job without further interference from this Government?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, I've heard very loud and clear from investors who wish to invest more in Scotland about the importance of ensuring that we balance the rent controls that we are bringing in to protect tenants with the need to ensure we provide certainty. So what I find astounding is Megan Gallagher asking that question 2 days after she actually made it easier for rent controls to come in Scotland rather than the supposed principal stand she had against them. And I think that is something that she will have to answer to private investors for directly.
Claire Hawkey.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I'm proud of this SNP Government's record on delivering affordable housing for families across Scotland. And I'm not sure Mr O'Kane can say the same of his party, who famously only delivered 6 council properties in the last 4 years of government.
6, all in Shetland.
Can the Minister outline how the Scottish Government will work tirelessly to meet the target of 110,000 homes by 2032, particularly through investment in the 25-26 Scottish budget, which the Labour Party did not engage with, let alone vote for?
Indeed. Cabinet Secretary.
Well, the budget for 25-26 sees an increase of more than £211 million when compared to the 24-25 published budget, and that's more than 180 million in capital and almost £31 million in financial transactions. And that's demonstration of this Government's determination to continue to deliver on affordable homes.
And briefly, Willie Rennie.
Purpose-built student accommodation is important alongside affordable accommodation. I do not believe that purpose-built student accommodation should be in the housing bill. Does the Cabinet Secretary agree?
Cabinet Secretary.
As Willie Rennie will know, the Government has brought forward a housing bill that does not include purpose-built student accommodation. I do not wish to see public purpose-built student accommodation included in rent controls, and the Government will not support any amendments that does that.
Thank you. That concludes portfolio questions on social justice. There will be a brief pause before we move to the next item of business to allow front benches to change.